The Chinook salmon, Oncorhynchus shawaicha, is an anadromous species that was named after the indigenous fishing tribe. Their natural range flows from rivers and tributaries inland and then out to the coastal waters and open ocean from California all the way to Alaska. They also go out in the open ocean and can be found in Russia, in Japan, and there's been some that have been put into the Great Lakes, but they're not naturally from there. They are the largest and most valuable commercial species of salmon in the U.S. In 2020, none of the populations in Alaska were listed under the Endangered Species Act. However, California had 7 populations listed as threatened, and 2 populations were listed as endangered. But upon further exploration, one population in California is facing extinction, and scientists are collaborating to face challenges before they run out of time. Urban development and dam building separates the reproductive ready adults from their cold freshwater spawning streams and is one of the biggest issues with sustaining the species. Another variable that affects their survival is water quality, both fresh and marine. Pollution from agriculture and logging is changing the chemistry of their habitat. NOAA Fisheries works in cooperation with federal, state, tribal, and Canadian officials to manage these commercial, recreational, and tribal harvest of salmon and steelhead in ocean and inland waters of the West Coast and Alaska. The Chinook salmon have been central to First Nation tribes. They're named after the Chinook Indian Nation. And they are central, the Chinook salmon is central to First Nation tribes' spiritual and physical culture in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska, long before European settlers arrived. Pacific tribes were fishing practices and gear only aided in their abundance. As history passed, 21st century commercial fisheries have over-harvested and urban construction of dams have blocked their migration, which is needed for the survival of the anadromous species. What was once an abundant and sacred natural resource has turned into a highly prized economic commodity that needs conservation efforts for the species to recover. Tens of thousands of Chinook tribal people relied on the salmon for up to 9,000 years before the British, Russian, and Spanish explorers arrived in the 1700s. Chinook people had many ceremonies and rituals surrounding this plentiful natural resource, and it was a diet staple and spiritual connection. The Chinook peoples caught salmon using a variety of methods. By the mouth of the river, they made long seine nets with twine spun from spruce roots and with stones tied to the bottom edges. In narrower, quiet parts of the river, they built intricate weirs, mazes, baskets, and traps. Over rapids, they built overhanging stages where men with poles as long as 30 feet reached down to dip, net, and spear salmon as the fish leaped past. During the Lewis and Clark expedition in 1805, they first came upon the Chinook tribes during one of their salmon festivals, celebrating an abundant harvest. They also witnessed a fish market by the rivers. The Chinook salmon is a powerful symbol for the Pacific Northwest indigenous people. Over the last century, a steep decline in Chinook populations has been attributed to habitat loss, degradation, dams that impede migration, harvest rates, and negative influence of hatcheries. Overfishing by industrial fisheries and urban construction have created enough issues that changes have been mandated to protect the species' continuation into the future. There's a bit of life history here because as they're anadromous, they have a saltwater phase and a freshwater phase, and they look distinctly different. Here they have a strong sense of smell, seems to guide the migration. In freshwater phase, they have black gums. So this is an adult returning back to its natal streams to breed. Here in the red is a male. They are known as the king salmon and the largest of the salmonids, averaging between 15 and 75 pounds. They have black spots along their entire dorsal area, black gums in their lower jaw, and silver on their tails. They are born in the same location that their parents and their parents' parents were born in, and they know how to return there as adults to lay their eggs. The young Chinook salmon stay in their streams and they like to eat insects and small crustaceans, while the adults eat other fish. They are the largest salmon and have been found to be as big as 115 pounds and 5 feet long. Total population numbers are unknown, but over 1 million are harvested each year. Sexual maturity is between 2 and 7 years old when they return from sea back into freshwater rivers and streams to find their mates and build nests. A female Chinook salmon can deposit anywhere from 3,000 to 14,000 eggs in a nest. They are semiparous, meaning that they only breed once, and then they usually die soon after breeding. Their natural mortality is from birds of prey, orcas, seals, and bears. They are also susceptible to parasites, and warmer waters has detrimental repercussions on all areas of health. For conservation, the data in the graph show that in the last 40 years, the Chinook population went from 1,200,000 in 1984 to more than half in 2018. Management. The Pacific Fishery Management Council, along with NOAA, regulate this species in California, Oregon, and Washington with the use of the Magnuson-Stevenson Fishery and Conservation Act and the Endangered Species Act. The council manages for tribal, recreational, and commercial harvest in federal waters. Management tools such as season length, quotas, and bag limits vary depending on how many salmon are present. There are 2 central parts of the fishery management plan: conservation objectives, which are annual goals for the number of spawners of the major salmon stocks, and allocation provisions of the harvest among different groups of fishers: commercial, recreational, tribal, various ports, ocean, and inland. Restoring freshwater habitat is a big part of the management. Recommendations. Anadromous species have huge habitat ranges and are therefore more susceptible to possible extinction. As the Chinook salmon keeps losing its spawning streams to dams and urban development, their survival is hanging by a thread. While we can see NOAA stock assessments in 2020 say that very few populations are declining, by 2022, one of those populations is already facing extinction for winter run by the Shasta Reservoir. After 3 years of severe drought in California, one population of Chinook salmon is close to extinction. Biologists have created incubation tanks next to the species' natural habitat, a habitat that has been blocked off from the species since 1940 by the Shasta Dam. Approximately 50,000 eggs will have the spring-fed McCloud River circulate its fresh water through the incubators, and then the salmon fry will swim in the river for the first time in 82 years. Rotary screw traps will collect the salmon fry and redistribute them through the Sacramento River to complete their migration to the Pacific Ocean. The winter run Chinook salmon had to change their spawning and migratory waters due to the Shasta Dam and moved into a less suitable habitat, the Sacramento River. The Sacramento River's water temperatures are too hot for the eggs, killing most of them. This population is hanging with too many limiting factors. My recommendation is to enforce stricter regulations and treat the species as endangered and being close to extinction. I believe this because there are too many limiting factors attacking the survival, from wildfires, pollution, overfishing, elevated water temperatures, and complete habitat loss of spawning streams and rivers. There are just too many variables complicating the necessary geography for salmon to recover. Thank you.